our launch of the spring 2025 cohort of your best-selling book in the Story Cure community with Jordan Reeves. So we spoke briefly with Jordan earlier, but just in case you weren't here, and anyway, as a reminder, Jordan Reeves has over 15 years of experience leading operations and strategies for high-growth startups, creative projects, and mission-driven organizations. He was the founder of VideoOut, traveling the country for nearly a decade, collecting stories from the queer community and helping people share these stories on stage. And they're all in the Library of Congress. It's really an incredible project. And a founding member of TED Ed. And one of our beta testers of the Story Cure community. Welcome back, Jordan.
Thanks, May. This is such a great day. I didn't even think I was going to be able to make it today. Had travel plans, but they got canceled, and I've never been happier that travel plans got canceled. So happy to be here today.
Well, you are such a treasure to have. So you were talking a bit about your own journey, and I was asking about your story. And we started off with growing up in small town, rural Alabama, and knowing you were queer from a young age, and then having a teacher who kind of guided you on your way. So I would love for you to pick up from there and tell us a bit more about your journey, particularly as it relates to VideoOut and helping other people tell their stories.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks. So I was sitting in that class, and I really I wanted to die. You know, when you don't know who you are, when you're not able to connect to your authentic self, it's not that you want to do harm, it's just that you don't have a reason to live. And my professor gave me that reason. He said, here is an example of how you can live your life. You can have happiness, you can have joy, you can have love and peace. And it was the very first time I was able to see my own story play out in my own future. So I said, oh my gosh, great. And I immediately went to his class and I told him, hey, I'm also queer. But here's the thing, that story made something in my life click. Not just an ability to live authentically as myself, but also to help other people do the same thing. So I was living in Alabama at the time. I was teaching science, and Cliff came to me one day, and that was my professor. Cliff said, you need to move to New York. Just go somewhere where you can see past the end of your own nose. And I did. So that's when I started working for TED. I helped launch TED Ed, and TED Ed content has now been viewed like 4 billion times online. It's wild. And I really got to see the power of digital media. And I thought, wow, if Cliff Simon's story saved my life, and now I see how stories that we share online can reach billions of people. What if we shared the stories of queer people online? How many lives could that save? So I left TED and I started the nonprofit VideoOut, and it was grassroots. There was no money. It was like less than a shoestring. It was more like a flimsy piece of floss. And we were just like traveling around, asking people to share their stories. And I had this like tripod where I was recording people's stories. And as I was recording, the tripod would start to lean. So like, it didn't matter. The power of these stories resonated. And we were able to edit those stories and give them back to the organizations working at the local level to use as advocacy tools. So now there's about 500, we call them mini documentaries. They range from 5 minutes to 45 minutes. And one of the things I think that we did the best was we empowered people to share their story. So often we heard, you know what, Jordan? I don't have a story. Ask someone else. Their story is more exciting, it's funnier, it's more sophisticated. And let me tell you, there is nothing farther from the truth. If you are alive and you're breathing, you have a story to tell. And you may not know it, but there's an audience to hear it too. Cliff didn't know that his story was going to reach my ears and save my life, but it did. And your story has the power to do the same thing. So share it. in whatever way you can, whether that's on Instagram or in a newsletter. It doesn't matter. Your story is important, it's valid, and it deserves to be in the world. So I'll give you one quick example of how um, empowering people to share their stories created this ripple effect of positive change. We did an event where there were 6 storytellers sharing live from the stage. And we were in a small town, and I was nervous because I saw this guy come in, and I brought all of my own preconceived notions to this event. And this guy was wearing uh, camouflage, and I was like, I know those people. He was like a big guy, and I was like, I'm scared of this person. And he came up to me afterwards, after all 6 storytellers had told their story about being queer and overcoming obstacles and really living in their truth. And he said, "Hey, is this your event?" And I was like, "Yes, it might be. Why do you ask?" And he said, "I just want you to know that I've been living in the closet for 60 years. And after hearing these stories, I'm going to go home and tell my family that I'm queer." So your stories are powerful. They have a magic when they leave your lips and reach the ears of the audience. They can save lives. They can inspire people to step into their truth. So not only do you have a responsibility and a privilege to share your story, you also have an opportunity to provide platforms for other people to do the same. So that's kind of where I came from and what VideoOut did and why I'm so passionate about being a a part of the Story Cure community. I really believe in the power of story.
That is a beautiful, beautiful story. How amazing. The story cure in action. I think Tuan has a question for you.
Wow, Jordan, like as you were talking, I got multiple chills and I felt like these invisible, not daggers now, but they're like little arrows like shot into my heart because I'm like, oh my God, yes, yes, yes. Um, I think when you it's like a candle, right? When you light a candle and then you illuminate the dark room and then somebody else walks in with another candle and you light it, and that's what you've done for so many people. So thank you. Um, a big question that I have to ask is sort of twofold. One is, what would you tell your younger self, the scared, kid who is afraid to be his authentic self? And then what would you tell the people, the kids watching that are in the same space and didn't have Uncle Jordan, Uncle Tuan, Auntie Maymay's?
Oh, I love that question. Um, and my answer has evolved a lot over the years. Because I think there's this tendency for us to say, just be yourself. Like, just be yourself right now. You know, whatever you have to do, be yourself. But the truth is, there's no rush. You are magic and beautiful and courageous. And, uh, you know, I don't have to tell you this, but I will, that you're perfect just the way you are. And you don't owe anybody anything. But you owe yourself a lot. You owe yourself a lot of love and a lot of patience and a lot of kindness because it feels good. And if you do it, you'll grow up to be someone that loves themselves and is patient with themselves and is kind to themselves. And what better gift can you give to yourself than that? So I think sometimes the advice to be yourself can feel like it's pressuring you to be performative, like to go out and be something in the world. And that's not true. Being yourself is just a calm acceptance of who you really are. You'll know when it's right to come out. You'll know when it's right to tell people whatever part of your story you feel like telling. And only then should you do it. I remember there was a storyteller, a VideoOut storyteller, and a powerful activist, Stacey N. Chin. And she was like, coming out is a myth. Don't do it. It's dangerous. And when you do, you'll lose your financial stability. You'll lose powerful connections to community. Your life will be uprooted. So take it slow. don't come out. And Tuan, as you said, invite people in, build a community around yourself. And then once you have community, then there's no need to come out. You just be yourself. So I think that's the advice I would give to what I would tell my younger self. And it happens to be the same thing I would tell people who are in a similar space. There's no rush. Just be patient and kind with yourself and really learn to love yourself, because that's what you need when you get old and gray like me.
Old and gray, hardly.
That was
You're such
really beautiful. Thank you for that. Wow. And can I just add one thing too? It's like you don't have to come out to the world, it just not everybody has this like community that Maymay's building, at their disposal. So it's like find your tribe, find one person that sees you. I think that's really important, but just having the grace and the permission to not feel bad that you're not
Yeah,
ready to. Well, that person came, it's not a competition of who comes out when
yeah.
first. It's
Yeah.
not like, oh, you came out at 10. Damn it, why did I wait till I was 30? You know what I mean?
I know.
So thank you for that and all the work you do.
Thanks,
Thank
Tuan.
you. Thank you, Tuan, and thank you for the question. Jordan, we had a question come up in the Story Cure community, which you are an early beta tester. And I believe Kiran might have been the motivator for this question, so I'll let him jump in too. But he was talking about story told through song. And I bring this up because you have an affection for Dolly Parton. I think it's safe to say you have told me about. I don't really know Dolly, I'm embarrassed to say. But tell me about like storytelling through song. I am a huge Lady Gaga fan and of other artists who tell stories, and Kiran has artists who tell stories that he loves. How has storytelling through music impacted you?
Mm. Well, I grew up in the church, and so did Dolly Parton. Maybe that's why I have an affinity for her. And um, we used song as a way to tell the story of our faith and our uh, affection for a higher power. And that kind of storytelling um, through song is a way that we can pass it down from generation to generation. So I would oftentimes go to my grandma's house after church, and we would sit around the piano and sing hymns together. So at a very young age, I'm not a believer anymore. I don't go to church anymore, but I still love the old hymns. I still love that kind of um, storytelling through song. And it wasn't actually until college that I found Dolly Parton. And I thought she was this crazy drag queen and like just a weird character, but fell in love with her the more I got to know her. And I read her autobiography really before I listened to her music. Didn't know anything about her music. Wasn't into country music at all. And still am not really. Um, but I listened to Dolly Parton's entire discography. It took me about a year, and she has over 60 studio albums, has written thousands of songs, and um, a lot of her songs are deep and poetic. And she has a song called Down from Dover where she talks about a young girl who gets pregnant and her parents send her off. And she has the baby. She's waiting on her husband to meet her. The husband never comes, and the baby dies, and she's all alone. And it's this really like painful story of sorrow. And so a lot of people think of Dolly as this one-dimensional, like fluffy, bubbly storyteller, but really her songs really they delve into the depths of humanity and try to show us where we're all a lot alike and where we can find those intersections of experience. So I think song does that in a really beautiful way. And like I said, it sort of it eternalizes a message, whereas oftentimes oral traditions are lost, or books are too much of a commitment. But songs can be kind of passive. They enter the subconscious. We listen to them in the background. And I'm very proud of this fact. I'm always in the top 0.05% of Dolly Parton listeners on Spotify. So her message is always coming through the subconscious. So yeah, storytelling through song, I think, is really powerful. I'm interested, Karan, if I know, yeah, that was your question on the storyteller community. Do you have a musician or a song teller, as Dolly Parton calls it, that you feel a great affinity towards?
Oh, it's a great question, Jordan. It's a great question. Maybe I'll answer it in two parts. I do, I have many, but I will begin by saying I think what you said is so powerful because one of the things about telling stories through songs is they don't need the same kind of structure as saying telling stories through books or whatever. They are these open, like often the third act of many songs, they don't exist. So you get to just fill that in. And so every time you listen to it, you fill it in a different way, in a different way, in a different way. Um, like I grew up playing a lot of music, and and I began with Dylan and Hendrix and that kind of stuff because I was a guitar player. But then it really became very big for me where every story, those that had a message or a meaning to me were like I just grabbed onto it. I mean, I obviously went everywhere from like new wave to from Depeche Mode to The Cure to everything. But I'm always open to that. I mean, I really love that element because it's not poetry, and it's not like writing a narrative. But it's like what Dolly gives is what you said. It's like there's enough of this hook. There's like Springsteen is like that too. There's enough of this thing that I'm going to tell you this tale, but I'm not going to finish it for you.
Yeah.
And the rest is up to you. And then I also wanted to go back to what you were saying about loving yourself, because about a couple months ago, I had a sort of experience and I was talking to Maymay about our kids. Our kids are like 10. And I was telling her, they're gonna be all right as long as we teach them to love themselves. There's not much more we can do than that. Because if we, teach them to hate on themselves, whatever, they're gonna make bad choices. But if they know that they, like every choice they make feeds that love for themselves, that is the best we can do. So I just wanted to go deeper onto that because you seem to discover that a little bit later. I'm still discovering it. I don't think I know it quite yet.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. I think the other hard part about loving yourself is that you're never quite the same. So every day you wake up as a new person. You have different tastes, different experiences. Um, and I think a big part of learning to love myself was to learn that I'm actually only in control of this, my reaction to this moment. So I can't control what I've done in the past. I don't know what's going to happen in the future. So if I just focus on right now, then I can be like, oh, actually, you're creative. You can figure this out. Or, oh, you're patient and kind. Or, you can write the narrative right now. And then you can write their narrative for right now. And when you do that, you really start to fall in love with yourself. So don't worry too much about who you've been or who you're going to be. Just worry about right now and fall in love with that person. And that becomes the mode of operation, the pattern that you see in your life. Um, but it is hard. I just spent 3 weeks at home in Alabama, and I realized why I am how I am from spending so much time with my parents. And there were a couple of times when I got really upset with my dad. And I was like, oh, you're actually not upset with your dad. You're upset with who you used to be, or you're upset with yourself for behaving the way that you used to behave. But actually, you love your dad and you find some of the things that he does endearing. You just didn't want to see that mirror. So just concentrate on this moment and love yourself. So when you see your dad, you don't have to have those feelings. So it was a really powerful reminder about loving yourself and not being too hard on whatever part of yourself outside of this moment.
That's amazing. I'm going to story cure it with you.
uh,
It is happening
that's
right
right.
here, live on screen. Story Cure coming to you. Thank you, Kiran, for those great questions. Jordan, I have another question for you about your traversing the country collecting queer stories for Video Out. Did you notice some common themes beyond, I'm talking beyond maybe what we would traditionally think of as like the coming out story? Were there like common human themes and elements that you noticed?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think my favorite one is something that I'm still trying to concretize as a concept. But the beauty of the collective is that we recorded stories across all the different demographics, socioeconomic, racial, religious, geographic. We went into we were invited to go into reservation lands. We were invited to go into senior homes, and all the different experiences that we had, the stories that we collected, sort of where it was a slice of life, and really beautiful to see how those different experiences all shared this one thing, which is that actually we're all queer, all of us. And Bell Hooks says that queerness is not about who I go to bed with. That can be a dimension of it. But queerness is about me being in direct opposition of everything the world wants me to be and still thriving. So the queer people that we talked to, some of them had faced incredible adversity. And because of their queerness, learned or even developed in themselves a strength, a resilience to face those adversities and to overcome. So I think the big theme that I saw was that, the individual against the world is probably something we all can relate to. And my big message or solution for that challenge is just rest in your queerness. It's nothing to be afraid of. It's just that you're learning to be up against the world. It's full of harsh demands, and you're choosing to be yourself, which is so beautiful.
Jordan, thank you. You have so much wisdom, and I really appreciate your being here today. We will find you, Jordan Reeves. You can find him on Instagram, Facebook. Look up the Video Out project, check it out. It's in the Library of Congress. And thank you for being here and sharing yourself. What you just said reminds me of one of my favorite quotes from RuPaul. Jen introduced me to RuPaul's Drag Race. We're all born naked and the rest is drag, which I
Amen.
love. Amen to that. Thank you for
Thank you,
being
May
here,
May.
Jordan.